So, good evening, everyone. My name is Tabatha Watson, and I'm the director and curator here at Homer Watson House and Gallery. Thank you for joining us for the virtual reception of our current in-person exhibition, Who Not What, by artist Logan Soeder. Logan, who uses pronouns they, them, is a non-binary, Kitchener-based painter and illustrator who works primarily in watercolor and acrylic. Logan is highly accomplished and has received a grant from the Waterloo Region's Arts Fund in support of this exhibition. Logan is also donating 15% of their earnings from art sales from this exhibition to the Land Back Camp in Victoria Park. Over the course of this reception, we'll be discussing the pieces in the exhibition and also feature poetry and music performed by friends of Logan. So before we get started, Logan would just like to say a few words.
Right. I'd like to acknowledge that the Homer Watson House and Gallery and the locations of many of my pieces, or all my pieces, are located on the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee people. Land promised to the Six Nations, 6 miles on each side of the Grand River.
Thanks. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest speaker, Mara. Mara, pronouns he, him, is a healthcare community advisor at Harmony Wellness Collective. There he uses learned skills, sharp instinct, and an open mind in helping people discover their true nature and achieve compassionate life experiences. Mara believes that spontaneous and authentic living is weaving into balance through developing awareness and intuition, supported by the motivation of love. So here's Mara to share his poem with us.
Thank you, Tabatha. I would like today to share a poem that I wrote in celebration for Logan's art presentation, and it is called Naturally. Rhythm of inspiration, moving light on wood and moss, embracing breath of life. Hollow within a name, calls the forest of the west. Roots have traveled east in fall to give unity in the divide. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, muted myself. Thanks for sharing with us, Mara. So we're going to feature another friend of Logan's who's going to be performing on harp. So next I'd like to welcome Jim Parrott, pronoun he, him, and his double-strung traditional harp, Elbereth, pronoun she, her. Jim will be performing as his druid persona, Taliesin, named after the early Brythonic bard of sub-Roman Britain.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. I'm going to be playing a fairly short piece from the 1200s. Just a moment. Let's get it. My husband's in the other room. Okay. It was gathered in Castile, Spain by King Alfonso X. Nobody knows who wrote these pieces. There's over 400 of them. This is a short one called Rosas das Rosas. So it's Rose of Roses. And it's in what they call the Dorian mode. Just, here's the scale. Okay.
Thank you, Jim, for that beautiful performance. We're just going to show some images as well, so we should be okay. So to get started, can you tell us what inspired you to create this body of work and the title of this exhibition?
Sure. So this work, it's a meditation practice, and I have written my answers mostly because it's hard for me to kind of find the words when I'm on the spot. So I'm just going to read through what I have here. So this work, it's a meditation practice, and it's a way for me to listen to my intuition. I found that Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, was the inspiration behind the title Who Not What. In the chapter Learning the Grammar of Animacy, Robin speaks about her indigenous Potawatomi language, referring to plants and trees as a who and not an it. So referring to things as an it usually opens the door to exploitation. And it turns our mind to seeing these beings as a commodity. This concept really stuck to me, and it really stuck to me like glue. And I don't want to turn back to seeing trees as things anymore. For one, it made me feel less lonely, and for another, it really touched on how I've always felt about trees. So I would say look for Robin's book. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I actually ended up buying the audiobook, and I really enjoyed it. There's also a YouTube video by, I don't know if it was actually Robin that made the YouTube video, but there is Robin in it, and she goes into detail about animacy in her native language and the needed forest connection of today. So there's a link to the video on the Homer Watson House and Gallery website, and I really suggest that people go and look at or have a listen to that video, because I feel like it's some of the things they speak about, it really touches on how I felt while working on some of these pieces. So
thanks. Yeah, so if you want to find that link, if you go into the exhibitions page where Logan's exhibition is, there's a link to the piece mentioned on there. But do feel free to get in touch if you are struggling to find it. So for the next question, how has this view of animacy transformed your world and helped you heal from disconnection?
So through my therapy to help heal my phobia, I learned that having a belief is like putting on a lens. You kind of color your world with your thoughts, and choosing to see trees as beings made the world seem more magical and less lonely to me. I slip in and out of this view sometimes, and because it can become quite intense. I find that one of the nicest things is feeling like I have friends all around me, and if I need to cry and nobody is around to comfort me, I let the trees kind of embrace me, and I feel a more intense sadness and empathetic pain in my body when they have been chopped, or like when I'm watching somebody chop a tree or cut branches or burning them, like when they're still connected to the ground and they're just burned. I feel that empathetic pain towards them. And I think this feeling, I feel like we don't have in this society, like we don't really have this feeling towards plants normally. So this feeling I had like recently on one of my biking routes, somebody had chopped a tree I really loved looking at. And I just felt a great sadness for it because I've been kind of connected to that tree. I've seen it every day, and suddenly it's gone, and it's just laying there. It's obviously not been used. The person was camping in the woods, like the woods near my house. There's a woods with some folks that don't have spaces to live. Like, you know, I'm very privileged to have a house, and some people feel they need to camp in the woods. But some of these trees were just kind of chopped and burned, and it was kind of upsetting to see. So my ability to connect and make friends with people has improved greatly, though I still kind of struggle. Like, I feel like this learning about this language, it's helped me just feel okay to express myself in that way. So speaking to trees before taking something from it, or asking for a hug, or envisioning the connection to its roots at my feet, has soothed this struggle of mine. All of this has raised one question in me, though. If we're seeing trees as commodity, what exactly are we creating with our thoughts around that? What's going to happen with our trees and our forests if all we see is just lumber? You know, we don't have this special connection to them. And I feel like there's lots to offer in this language, the Indigenous language, with animacy being its root.
Okay, so on a slightly different note, do you have a favorite piece in the exhibition?
I like Memory of Spirit. This is my favorite right now, but I feel it'll change as I change, because I know I'm kind of an ever-shifting being, just like the trees. I find that cedars are incredibly grounding, and the image of a deep forest of cedars is extremely soothing. Like, I just love the colors. The reds especially, it kind of pulls you down to that root chakra. Like, it just pulls you right down to the ground. And I feel like kind of a pleasant, like low vibration. I just feel at peace. Like all fear kind of gets wiped away. So
Great. Yeah. I find, as I've been looking at the show, every time I go in, I seem to have a different favorite. So there's lots of great pieces in the show. I guess that's the gist of it. So again, on a slightly different note, can you tell us about some of the techniques you use to create your pieces?
Okay, so I usually start by visiting the forest or tree that I want to paint, because I believe I don't connect to the spirit as strongly if I'm looking at a picture. It's like drawing a friend, like being there with them is much more fun. I draw only a sketch to kind of capture the energy of the subject, and then I would ask the tree if I could take some bark or a leaf, or just so I have some of that energy at home with me while I'm working on the piece. And I find that this is a good practice in listening to intuition, because there have been many times that trees have said no to me. And usually this happens when they're without other trees, and they've grown like separate from others, or maybe maybe other trees have been chopped around them. I noticed it when I was out near an area that had been wiped for suburban development, that, you know, they're definitely like, I don't even know exactly how to express the feeling I get, but it's just it's not even an upset, sad feeling. It's just kind of a lost feeling, almost like I don't really know what's going on, help us kind of thing. So once I have my sketch, I take a photograph of the space and I head back to the studio. I'll always start with a watercolor painting and later decide if I want to go bigger with the acrylics. I've started making my own panels now, so I feel I can really experiment with a lot with size without restrictions on like standard sizes. So that's really awesome and cool and fun. Learned how to use my own miter saw, which was kind of intense at first, but it was really good learning experience. So the watercolor process is typically divided into 4 stages. So there's the sketch, there's the underpainting, overpainting, and details. And the large acrylics are simply taking the colors in those watercolors and laying them down on a large birch panel. And I felt like that process gave me a better result than with painting from a photograph, because it's just more detailed and there's more processing that has to happen in my brain, and it can take a lot longer and it sometimes can be more difficult. I mean, I can do it, but I prefer, I've already made this piece as a little watercolor, so why not use that and blow it up and, you know, make it larger, whatever that intent that I put into the very small one, I can make it much larger and enjoy it at a larger scale. And there's usually quite a lot of color mixing involved in that, but I love color mixing, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, so keeping in mind with this show and what you've accomplished with it, what's next for you? Do you have a body of work planned or in progress? And if so, what's the theme or inspiration behind it?
So lots of things is the short answer. I'm definitely going to continue with the forest painting as a spiritual practice. I just feel like it's truly become part of me personally, like for my spirituality. And I would like to dive back into illustrating. Oh, hi, Sheila. Yeah, Sheila just logged in. So sorry, I forget where I was here. Okay, so I love illustrating. It's where I find a lot of joy. And oh, sorry, no, I'll read back here. I'd like to dive back into illustrating, especially for children. I love illustrating. It's where I find a lot of joy. And I have a few characters, Little Blue Fox and Finch. I've been working with them for about 6 years, and I feel it's time to bring them to life in a kid's book. I would like children to see what I see when I'm in a forest and be captured by that magic. And I feel like the stories will be based on that forest connection. So I feel I may use the titles of my paintings in Who Not What as inspiration, and perhaps like some inspiration from indigenous languages. Just kind of an amalgamation of all those different things coming together. I also love comics, and I feel there would be a series of short web comics for inspiration to a comic book called Shift that I've planned for a little while. Shift will be a comic book based on my transition and healing journey. And I feel like forests are probably going to play a good part in that. There will be lessons of impermanence and spirituality in that. And lastly, I'd also like to explore music with my son Gavin. I love music a lot, and I've always been into playing all sorts of different instruments. And me and my son go to I think it's Long and McQuaid, uptown Waterloo, and just playing with all sorts of different sound making things. You know, like it's really fun. And I feel like the forest, I feel sound can be very soothing and transformative. So definitely want to explore some of that. And he's being homeschooled right now, so we have the opportunity to do that.
Awesome. That sounds very exciting. I really love your illustrations, so I'm excited to see what your book will be like. So keep us posted. But moving on, just a final question, I guess, is if people are interested in purchasing any of your work, or they want to find out more about you, where can they do this?
So I'm on Instagram, and my art account is acorn_cabin. And I'm on Facebook. I'm lolo.sader. Email always works well for me, so logansader@gmail.com. And my website will be under construction soon, and probably done around November 1st. I'm kind of learning about like stores at the moment. I've always kind of procrastinated on making stores for myself because I just want to create. Like I don't want to. I'm not always big on like selling stuff, which probably isn't the greatest, but like I love creating, so I'm trying to learn a little bit more about the stores and the selling and all that stuff so I can keep creating.
Awesome. So we'll keep an eye out for your new website as well.
Okay.
So as the next phase of this evening, we're just going to go, Logan's just going to be reflecting on a few of the specific pieces from the show. Obviously, there's quite a few to see in person, but there's just a few that will do a bit of extra going over. So we're starting off with Into the Cedars.
Okay. Yeah. So Into the Cedars, I was speaking to a few friends I brought to the show at the beginning of the week, and I told them about the forest at Crawford Lake in Milton. And there's a marsh area along the boardwalk. If you've ever been to Crawford Lake, there's like this giant boardwalk that goes around the lake. And as I walked along, I felt that the trees were so happy and comfortable. I had this vision that they were actually sleeping and snuggling together. And they were just so happy and connected. Like these cedars in the marsh, I felt a sense of like calmness in my body. Like I was connecting to them as well and just kind of breathing it in. And it was only as I walked along and I started kind of like touching them. Like I wanted to, oh man, these trees are great. I want to touch them. That they kind of like woke slightly from their slumber. They're like, what's going on? Like who touched me? So I guess like, they don't get many human hands on them. And the smell there was just fantastic. Like that marsh kind of cedary wetness is just great, like mossy, cedary wetness. And I get this feeling from time to time, especially in places I know care very well for surrounding forests. And I feel like we really need more of this. Like we need more of this. It just feels like the forest is in good health and we need more of that feeling in our forests. So the boardwalk around Crawford Lake is what I was depicting in that image. And this part was kind of on the opposite side of the lake, but it still gives me that feeling of just these like slumbering cedars that are just so comfortable and happy growing together. And yeah, it was really beautiful.
Sounds great. So on to the next piece, Life, Death, and the Orioles Song.
So on a beautiful spring morning, I visited Laurel Creek in Waterloo for a sketch session. And I sat in the grass in front of a dead gray shell of an old apple tree. And like when these trees pass on, they pass on in style. Like they're still really cool to look at once they're gone. And the dead tree was still incredibly gorgeous. Right behind it was another apple tree in full bloom. And it seemed to just shoot out of the dead one like a spirit, like it's like showing me like, this is who I was kind of thing. Like they're still kind of communicating together in a way. And it's really breathtaking to be a part of that and to see that. Something very special happened in that moment. I feel like this apple tree was just having a conversation with me. And I really feel like forests kind of take in and care for their deceased family. Even though they're gone, it's like the forest still kind of plays, and the orioles were there. They were kind of adding the symphony behind it all. They, if I want to remember that moment, I can kind of click on YouTube or something and play the song of the oriole, and I feel kind of like I'm brought back into that space of like having that moment with the apple tree. So it was a really great experience.
Great. And now we've got expansion.
Sure. So I feel like this one's definitely one of my favorites because it makes me feel the way I did when I saw this white pine in Shades Mill in Cambridge. And I can't begin to express how uplifting this tree was to me. When I sit under trees like this, I feel like I'm kind of traveling back in time. Like I love to imagine what the land looked like when it was just a sapling, and the people who were around, or even like lack of people around, and maybe just what wildlife was there. And like, just imagine the stories this tree has to tell. We just need the heart to listen to it. And this one is called Expansion because when I painted it, I was in this unpleasant thought loop with the phobia. And I feel like this tree helped me feel more powerful in that moment. And it helped me kind of burst through that negative energy. It's like a great healer. And I don't know if I have anything else to say about that. It's really powerful.
Yeah, it almost has like a firework kind of energy to it,
Yeah.
You definitely see that.
Yeah, and even though it's got that firework, it's like this calmness to it.
Yeah.
The beautiful calmness and
all the best of both.
Yeah, what you're experiencing is okay, kind of thing. It's just gentle with yourself, and you're always changing and always shifting from the space that you're in. So yeah, it's really powerful.
Great. And then one more piece we've got is Portal.
Sure. So along Schneider's Creek in Homer Watson Park, Kitchener, there's a hidden path I discovered in 2017. And 2017 was a very trying time for me. I had a lot of confusion around my identity as a non-binary person, and I was lost in a maze of inner healing. And along this path was a bent and completely stripped cedar. And intuitively, I felt this was a way for me to step out of my depression for a moment and just take a break, and I imagine this tree creating kind of a portal for me, and stepping through into the other side, I felt like this heaviness kind of lift from me. And I had a much clearer mind for drawing and feeling inspired again. Like, I think at the time I was working on Fox and Finch, and it was like walking into Fox and Finch's world, like go through the portal and there's Fox and Finch right there, and you can just kind of play around and be inspired and leave that depression. And I feel like these portals kind of show up every once in a while for me, and usually they pop up when I'm aware that a choice I make can take me down a very different path to the one that I was, in quotations, stuck on. Mm-hmm. But really, I feel we're never actually stuck where we are. Like, we can always make that choice to kind of lift up somehow. And there's always something helping you to lift you out of that space. And the cedar's still there. You know, just a few weeks ago, I visited there with Gavin, and let's go see the cedar again. And we did. And it's actually much smaller than I remember it. At the time, it seemed huge to me, but it's actually quite a bit smaller. Yeah.
Great. So just come out of the presentation. There we go. So we do have one last guest who will be performing as well. Well, technically two more, but one last new guest, and that will be Tristan, who will be reading a poem for us. So Tristan is a neuroqueer, pronouns per, pers, and perself, Masters of Social Work student with a deep love of forests. Per sees a positive relationship with nature as an integral for health based both on growing body of research and on personal experience, and would one day like to incorporate conscientious connection to the outdoors into her counseling practice. Though Tristan does not consider herself an artist or poet, Per believes that everyone is capable of expressing themselves through the arts with patience and practice. Per wrote a poem while a friendly horse chestnut tree was a big part of keeping herself together, and would like to gratefully acknowledge its support for and inspiration. So take it away.
Hello. I am very grateful to Logan for the chance to share this. I don't have any background in actually performing poetry aloud, so please bear with me. Have you hugged a tree today? Not as an object, it's never an object, but as a lover, a friend, your mother, who you meant to call last week, but never did. Have you hugged a tree today? Embraced this sweet child of the earth, pressed your lips against its bark, pressed your hips against its trunk, and closed your eyes and smiled? Have you hugged a tree today? A friend you haven't seen for months, snug inside your arms again now, fast forever, gently welcomed, loving bonding, strong for ages. Have you hugged a tree today? Buried face beneath its leaves, breathed its soft and musty fragrance, wrapped inside the warmth and love of Mother Earth personified. Have you hugged a tree today? Felt the cool, sweet sap inside flow in and out and up and down, lifeblood filling leaf and twiglet, power that it shares with you. So, have you hugged a tree today? Not an object, never object. A friend, sibling, parent, lover, the body of the ever mother.
Thank you, Tristan. That was lovely. So we've got one final piece by Jim and his harp as well, and then we'll just have some closing notes. Looks like we might have some time for a few questions if anybody does have any from the audience, but we'll move on to Jim's next piece now. If Jim's still there.
Just a moment. Okay, oh, start the video. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right, thank you. So Logan asked me to take a piece that I performed that they heard and spin it out, improvise on it, and I'm going to do that. The piece I'm going to do was written in 1701 by Marais, and he called it Les Voix Humaines, the human voices. So I'm taking this, improvising on it, and adding a few other elements and calling it The Voices of Trees. So I'm going to turn the timer on just to make sure I don't go on for too long or too little. I think I can see that. So it's reflective, and but there will be some wind in the trees. So there'll be a little bit of passion coming through as well. So let's start.
Thanks, Jim. That was a really nice interpretation of that piece, inspired again by Logan's work as well. So really nice to finish the evening on that note. I think Logan wanted to say a few words now, so I'll leave the floor to Logan, if Logan's back. There we go.
Thank you for that, Jan. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. I was watching my tree out the window while you were playing that, and it just captured it perfectly. So thank you so much. And thank you to Mara for reading that poem, and to Tristan for reading. All of you guys did a really great job and really added to this. So thank you so much. Really means everything to me. And thank you for everybody for attending. Everybody who has attended, thank you for your support.
So that's great. If anybody wasn't able to make it tonight and you are aware of that, we will be posting the recording of this reception on our YouTube channel, and you can get to it via our website as well. So do let them know that they can still see it if they weren't able to make it tonight. But we're just coming to the end of the virtual reception now. I don't think we've got any questions in the chat, and we're getting a bit short on time anyway, but do feel free to get in touch with us at the gallery or with Logan directly if you wanted to ask any questions about the reception or the exhibition. Big thanks to Logan and our guest artists for sharing their work with us this evening, and thank you to all the participants who were able to join in. We had quite a few people joining in tonight, so that's really great, particularly given the circumstances at the moment. It's nice to see people engaging with art still. Logan's show, Who Not What, is on view at the gallery until November 2nd. We're open Tuesday to Sunday, 10 to 4, and tickets are bookable via telephone at 519-748-4377. And we also accept drop-ins on a first-come, first-served basis. Thanks again to Logan for sharing their beautiful exhibition with us at Homer Watson House and Gallery. The people who have managed to come so far have all really enjoyed it. So hopefully everyone gets a chance to see it. We also love here, being Homer Watson House and Gallery, that many of the locations featured in Logan's work are actually places that probably would have inspired Homer Watson as well. So there's a really nice connection there with the history of this site. We hope you enjoyed the evening, and that those of you who are able can visit the show at the gallery. Thanks again for joining in, and good night.